BMW completely changed or ruined SUVs in 2008 when it introduced the first generation X6. It was a mix between a sporty-looking fastback and a practical and off-road oriented SUV. However, those cars were never meant to go off-road, and this started an entire current that still dominates the industry to this day. The X6 can definitely be called a game changer, and it's a real success story for BMW. However, today, 3 generations on from the original, BMW's premium rivals have caught on, and they have released very similar models that are in their own right talented, and they have started to steal some of the X6's sales, because back in 2008 and a few years after, it was your only option if you wanted a coupe SUV. But today, Mercedes makes one, Porsche makes one, heck, even Renault makes one. So the contemporary BMW X6 needs to be good. Today I'm driving the facelifted version of the 3rd generation X6, the G06, which got its makeover in mid-2023. BMW changed the front fascia, the rear fascia, and it updated the interior with its array of 2 curved displays. The engine range for the X6 LCI has largely been left untouched, although all models are now mild hybrids. Even the top-of-the-range M60i model, which I'm driving today, which replaces the previous M50i model, although only in terms of badging. It has the same 4.4-liter V8 engine with 2 turbochargers located inside of the V, so they not only provide lots of power and torque, but also good response. And since this is a mild hybrid, the electric motor makes 12 horsepower and up to 200 Newton meters of torque, and even though the facelifted model is almost 100 kilos heavier than the pre-facelift model, BMW quotes the exact same performance numbers. Even with the addition of the mild hybrid 48-volt system, BMW says that this produces the exact same power and torque as before, and that is 530 PS or 523 brake horsepower and 750 Newton meters of torque. Peak power is delivered between 5,500 and 6,000 RPM, while peak torque comes in between 1,800 and 4,600 RPM. This accelerates to 100 kilometers per hour in 4.3 seconds. But if you engage the launch control, it feels even quicker than that, pinning you to your seat like nothing else. Driving this made me wonder why anybody would pay around 50,000 euros more for the X6M model, which gets the same S68 V8 under the hood, although it does have about 100 more horsepower, and it dips below the 4-second mark to 100 kilometers per hour. I think that model is irrelevant given that you get the V8 in this, and it's plenty fast, especially considering it weighs 2.3 tons now, and no matter how big the brakes are, there's no escaping physics. So even though this vehicle might feel very competent around the corners, physics-defyingly so I might add, to BMW's credit, there's no escaping the mass when you try to brake. One important handling-enhancing addition of the LCI model are the active sway bars, which thanks to the 48-volt system that feeds the mild hybrid, which by the way has a 0.96 kilowatt-hour battery pack, but it now stiffens the car when you go through corners to a point where lean becomes non-existent. It really is an eerie sensation to throw this big barge into a corner and have it not lean at all. It's ridiculous. And I've driven the X5, and this definitely feels sportier around the corners. Not to say that the X5 doesn't feel sporty, but this needs to feel sportier when it faces rivals like the ridiculously good to drive, also physics-defyingly good Cayenne Coupe, which Porsche eventually launched, realizing that this niche was something that it didn't cover, and now you see Cayenne Coupes all over the place. Buyers were really waiting for it, and it's all thanks to BMW launching this trend way back in 2008. In fact, BMW previewed the X6 with a 2007 concept that initially got mixed reactions. I still don't like these vehicles, but that's just my personal preference. The market has said otherwise. Some people really love the shape. I would honestly prefer a more traditional looking boxy SUV, but if you want something that's a bit more distinctive, then well, just get this. One thing that really surprised me about this vehicle, which has a great stonking V8 under the hood, thank God, is how little fuel it actually uses. I mean, sure, the way I've been driving it these past couple of days, I've been averaging 18.2 liters per 100 kilometers. Quite far off BMW's claimed 11-ish per 100 kilometers on the combined WLTP cycle. But if you drive it in Eco Pro mode, even though if you stab it, you still wake up the V8. But if you drive it in Eco Pro mode or in Comfort mode and just lightly feather the accelerator as you cruise around, the claimed efficiency figure is reasonably achievable. So for instance, now let me set the cruise control. So we're doing 60 kilometers per hour, and it's using, so it's going to be downhill soon, but now it says 7.2. So way under 10 liters per 100 kilometers, just cruising around at a lower constant speed. Let's bring it up to 70 kilometers per hour as we exit this village. Okay, I think it's level here. In fact, I can use the, where is it? Vehicle apps, content, X view. And this shows you if there's an incline. So there's not an incline here. And at 70 kilometers per hour, this big V8 hauling 2.3 tons of tall SUV around is using 6.1 liters per 100 kilometers. Nice. Anyway, so like I said, this car has an amazing launch control function. So I'm going to put the car in Sport Plus, and I'm going to disable traction control, left foot on the brake, stab the gas. Come on. It even spins all 4 tires. And that's already the speed limit. And around the corners, the 48-volt system and the active anti-roll bars do a really, really good job. The engine sounds pretty good from inside the car, but from outside it's rather quiet, if I'm honest. The car does pump some fakery through the speakers, which I'm going to disable now. Let's see. Browse menu. Iconic sounds. So this is with them on. And they were on before when I was accelerating. And if I turn them off, almost no difference. I think it can't hurt to do one more launch control. It's really brutal. That's 100. I would even dare say it feels quicker than the 4.3 second to 100 kilometers per hour claim. My tester also has the M Sport Performance suspension system, which stiffens the suspension up further because the X6 after the facelift can only be had with the M pack. You cannot get a standard X6 anymore. But the professional pack stiffens the suspension even more. It gives you the active anti-roll bars, and it just gives this car a very glued to the road feel. And you do forget that it weighs 2.3 tons. You really, really do. So coming back to the iconic sounds for a second, I don't think they make much of a difference. You can still clearly hear this is a V8. But since this car now has a particulate filter, it's quieter, and especially compared to the exact same model that you can buy in the US, which doesn't have this OPF, as it's called. That really sounds like a raspy, more traditional V8. This is a bit more muffled, and that's why BMW felt the need to give you some speaker fakery, which I don't think it needs because it sounds good enough, right? What is a bit disappointing to me, if I'm honest, is that the paddle shifters aren't especially responsive. And I've had a couple of instances where the car was in automatic mode and I stabbed the gas waiting for all the power to arrive, and it just didn't. I had to wait for like a second. And when you expect immediacy, and I was in sport mode, and when you expect immediacy from a car like this and you don't get it, it's a bit disappointing. And it might put you in a tricky situation because you come to expect the power and to rely on it a little bit. There's no escaping how smooth this V8 is though. Even when it fires up, especially now with the mild hybrid, it gets a more powerful starter, so you don't get the same cranking sound. It just fires into life. And this further enhances its almost vibrationless nature, if you ask me. It's really, really smooth. And BMW 6 cylinders are smooth, but this V8 just takes it up a notch. You can get air suspension in this car as an option, which is apparently the best balance between ride comfort and sportiness. But honestly, this car rides really, really well. It's currently on its winter tires, which are wrapped around 21-inch wheels. The car came with 22s. That's how it was bought, but it doesn't have them on right now. I'm not a fan of the design of these wheels, and they almost look small on the car this big. This car is almost 5 meters long. It rides on an almost 3 meter wheelbase. It's 2.2 meters wide with mirrors. And it's just a big bruiser of a car. People do get out of your way when they are startled by you in their mirror. Not to say that this is a car for people who tailgate, but even if you're not tailgating, people will still act like you are, let's say. This doesn't really suit my own character, but I guess for some people it works. The M Professional suspension pack also adds rear wheel steering, which tightens the turning circle. I think it's 12 meters without it. I didn't find the information of how much it cuts the turning circle, but I'm sure it does. It definitely feels maneuverable. And I will say that just like in the new 5 Series that I drove a month or so ago, BMW is really good at calibrating its rear wheel steering systems to feel natural. If you didn't know, and if you didn't see the rear wheels turning, you wouldn't know this had rear wheel steering. And that's great, because it might feel disconcerting for some people to feel that the rear end is drifting to one side or the other. I've turned iconic sounds back on. It sounds like it pumps a bassy note through the speakers in the rear to simulate a loud exhaust. So I was talking about ride comfort and I lost my train of thought, but I still need to say that this rides excellently. Definitely better than the XM that I drove a while back. Although that was on 23-inch wheels and it is an official M model, whereas this is not. But I felt that in that car, the very stiff and slightly uncomfortable ride was at odds with its luxurious character, even though it definitely drove in a sporty manner. And compared to that, this feels like a luxury car. It just glides over even relatively big speed bumps. This car also has the optional M limited slip differential in the rear, but again I have to compare it to the XM, which was a really tail happy machine. This doesn't really want to break the rear loose that much, even with the differential. If the road is a bit wet, or if there's some dust or some sand on the road, then yeah, you can do it. But on a dry road with good grip levels, it's almost impossible. I mean, you have to be crazy. Crazier than I am anyway. Oh, and let's not forget the width of all the tires. There are 275s up front and 315s in the back. A proper staggered setup. So what do you lose if you go for this sportier looking X6 over an X5? Well, the X5 has a 650 liter trunk that you can extend to 1870 liters if you fold down the rear seat, while this has a slightly smaller 580 liter trunk, which you can expand to 1530 liters. You also lose a little bit of rear headroom, although I'm 183 centimeters tall, or 6 feet tall, and I fit perfectly, and that's pretty much it. I think BMW is currently at the top of its game when it comes to assembly quality and materials quality. Today, as we speak, as I speak, it's better than Mercedes. I mean, there's no creaky nonsense. I mean, I'm sure you've seen those viral reels where they push on the Mercedes dashboard and it creaks. BMW's even cheaper ones than this just feel more solid. One thing I don't like about new BMWs, and the X6 included, is how light the steering is in comfort mode. In my mind, BMW steering has always been a bit heavy so that it inspires confidence and it's a bit sporty. But this feels like it's from a Mercedes. So the base price in Romania for an X6 is 87,000 euros. The base engine is the 30D, which is a 3-liter diesel with 298 horsepower. It pushes the car to 100 kilometers per hour in 6.1 seconds. And it should be the most efficient out of them all. Then there's also a 40D, which is the same engine but with a bit more power, 352 horsepower, and a slightly quicker sprint time of 5.5 seconds to 100 kilometers per hour. Then the base gas engine is the 40i, which has 381 horsepower and pushes the car to 100 kilometers per hour in 5.4 seconds. And then there's this, the M60i, with VAT included in Romania. It's 108,000 euros. My tester, with everything it has on it, including the BMW individual exterior paint color, which I don't know the name of, but it's absolutely fantastic, cost 148,000, almost 148,000 euros. But should you buy one of these? Well, I think it has a bit of an image problem, if you ask me, at least here in Romania. People perceive BMW drivers in a certain way, and BMW SUV drivers another way, worse. And BMW X6 drivers, well, people don't really like them. They will think you own a chain of shady nightclubs, but I don't think they would really respect your choice of car, especially if they know cars. But then again, this is just maybe my own bias against this type of show-off poser mobile. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it technically. It's a technical marvel. You have plenty of space, it's really practical, it's distinctive, it drives well, it has amazing engines. But frankly, I can't wait to return this and get back in my old 3 Series. Let me know in the comments, would you buy an X6 or an X5? And if you're seriously considering an X6, I'm not judging, don't feel offended, but if you are considering an X6, did you also cross-shop it against the Cayenne Coupe and the GLE Coupe from Mercedes? Thanks for watching.